You cannot afford these cars.
Dare you? I'm just looking.
The salesman sneered, folding his arms. We don't serve people like you here. The room went silent, all eyes turning toward the man he dismissed. But in the next moment, the salesman would realize the truth. This was no ordinary customer. The air inside the dealership was sharp with the scent of new leather and polished chrome. Salesmen moved with practiced smiles, guiding customers through gleaming cars, each deal another conquest. But at the far counter, silence cut through the room like a blade. A man had just been told he wasn't welcome. He stood tall, his presence commanding yet calm. His skin bore the tone of resilience, his eyes reflecting quiet strength. The salesman's words hung heavy in the air, dripping with dismissal and disdain. The onlookers shifted uncomfortably, yet no one spoke. The man's silence, however, was not weakness. It was a storm waiting to break. This man, James, had carried battles far heavier than prejudice across a showroom floor. Years ago, he had worn a uniform, serving a nation that did not always serve him in return. His boots had sunk into desert sands, his hands had pulled brothers from fire, and his heart had carried the grief of men who never came home. In the military, there were no colors but the dust of war and the blood of sacrifice, and though the medals he earned were tucked away in drawers at home, his bearing revealed the weight of service. James had built a life on perseverance. After returning from war, he carried invisible wounds, moments replayed in his mind at night, faces etched forever in memory. But through discipline and faith, he turned his pain into purpose. He became a mentor for younger veterans, a father figure for boys without fathers, and a quiet protector of those overlooked by society. He never asked for thanks. Silent dignity was his language. Yet here, in a polished dealership under fluorescent lights, he was being stripped of that dignity. A man in a pressed suit, hiding behind arrogance, dared to reduce him to nothing more than his skin. And worse still, the crowd stayed silent, complicit in their quiet approval. The salesman smirked, tapping the counter as if to close the matter. Why don't you try somewhere else? This isn't for you, but James did not argue. He didn't raise his voice. He simply reached into his jacket, his movements slow, measured, unshaken. For a brief moment, tension rippled through the room, a whisper of unease. Then he pulled out a leather folder and placed it firmly on the desk. Inside was not anger, not protest, but authority. The embossed seal of the state, the signature of its governor, and the title that revealed who James truly was, newly appointed head of the dealership chain's board of directors. The salesman's smirk crumbled into pale silence. James spoke only then, his voice steady as stone. Respect is not given by position. It is revealed in character. Gasps spread through the room. Every bystander who had stayed silent now leaned forward, shame painted across their faces. The salesman's pride melted into stammering apologies, his arrogance unraveling under the weight of truth. But James did not seek revenge. He did not gloat or raise his voice. He simply stood, embodying the quiet power of a man who had already fought his greatest battles. His silence had been his strength, and now it had delivered justice. One of the customers, a young man who had watched in shame, finally stepped forward. "Sir, I'm sorry I didn't say anything sooner." James only nodded, his gaze soft but unyielding. "Do better," he replied. The room shifted. Customers who had once avoided eye contact now stood straighter, united by respect. Even those who had done nothing moments before now felt the weight of responsibility. In James's presence, silence became a mirror. By the time he left, heads bowed slightly, not in fear, but in reverence. The salesman who had mocked him stood frozen, his career now resting in the very hands he had dared to dismiss. And as James stepped into the sunlight outside, there was no anger in his stride, only peace. For he knew that true power does not come from forcing others down. It comes from standing tall when the world tries to make you small. His story left behind a message that lingered long after he was gone. Dignity is silent. Strength needs no voice, and honor is proven, not claimed. The dealership would never be the same, for everyone who witnessed that moment carried home a reminder that the quietest man in the room is often the one you should respect the most. Stories like this remind us that true strength is not found in shouting or in power over others. It is found in quiet dignity, in calm resilience, and in the unshakable courage to rise above injustice.